Hello everyone, I am the Weather Dude. Welcome back, and today we're going to be talking about a potentially very serious threat coming up for the Gulf Coast. It is Tropical Storm Ida, but it probably will not be a tropical storm for very long. We're going to be discussing every detail about this recently named tropical storm in this video and how it can become a hurricane and maybe even a major hurricane. Before we get started, however, be sure to like and subscribe because people are definitely going to need to see this video, and the more you guys like and subscribe, the more this video will get shared out to other people that definitely do need to see this, so thank you guys for the support. Alright, we are going to get straight into the video here, starting off with recently named Tropical Storm Ida. Alright, it is in the northwestern Caribbean right now, tracking to the north and west, alright, at a speed of about 14 miles an hour or so. The 8 o'clock advisory recently came in. It is still stuck at 40 mile an hour winds. Alright, so moving, is motion, yes, it's to the north and west. Pressure is 1,006, but as I'm going to show you later from the hurricane hunters, I think they might have found pressure lower than that. Winds are 40, wind gusts not much higher. Usually in some systems, like winds are 40, and then wind gusts might be 10, 15 miles higher than that. But winds and wind gusts are about 40 or 45 miles an hour. But as it continues to track onto north and west, it will strengthen, according to the National Hurricane Center. All right, and according to the National Hurricane Center, it could even become a 65 mile an hour strong tropical storm, similar to what Henri was when it made landfall in the northeast by the time it hits western Cuba. Now, I would like to say that crossing over Cuba may weaken it a little bit, and I don't really know if the National Hurricane Center takes that into consideration, or they do take it, because we can't tell, because it's only from one dot to the next, so I can only go like every 12 hours. But maybe they did have a weakening here, like around this area, and then they had like quick re-strengthening. I'm not sure, but I think western Cuba could weaken it a few miles an hour, or maybe it'll stay the same strength. But coming out over the Gulf of Mexico, I think at some point it will probably become a hurricane nonetheless, becoming a very strong hurricane, 100 and 110. All right. Now, from this angle, all right, from the angle that the storm is coming in, if it takes a more westerly track, all right, it could be a stronger system because it's going to be spending time over water, or more time over water. Also, water temperatures are slightly cooler. Now I say slightly cooler because there's like the entire Gulf is absolutely like jet fuel loaded for tropical development and tropical like strengthening. But over here toward the east, the waters are a couple degrees cooler. And what I mean by that is like over here, and like near southwestern Louisiana and off the coast there, I'll show you in a little bit. Water temperatures are like 88, 89. Almost, while water temperatures over here are like 86, 87. Again, not a big difference, right? Either way, it's very hot waters. Now, the earlier advisory from today had a 110 mile an hour storm offshore, and that would be assuming that they were forecasting a Cat 3 landfall. But now, again, there is still a little gap between the H and land, so it could still be a Cat 3 at landfall, but they're forecasting 110 with winds gusting to Cat 4 status. And this is going to be a growing and expanding system with landfall is forecast at 2 p.m. All right, on August 29th, which I'm pretty sure is Sunday. All right, so it's 2 p.m. Sunday, so I can assure you that impacts will start before that. And look at this, a strong tropical storm all the way inland. All right, so this is 2 p.m., right? You can see how it moves. All right, and this is 2 p.m. on Tuesday. All right, so again, look, here's 2 p.m. Sunday, 2 p.m. Monday, 2 p.m. Tuesday. There's not much, all right, in the way of movement. All right, so we're going to talk about how every aspect of the storm is going to be very deadly. All right, so very deadly for whoever it may impact. Remember, we don't have the track nailed down 100% yet. Most likely arrival time of those tropical storm force winds for New Orleans and Florida Panhandle, you guys still have a chance, so don't tune out there. Sunday morning will be the most likely arrival time in Houston. If you were to see those winds, would probably arrive Sunday later in the day, but they can very well arrive earlier. We could see impacts in those gusty winds starting as early as Saturday night for a place like New Orleans and Mobile, Alabama, while Houston may even be Sunday morning at the earliest. All right, notice there's a chance all the way inland Arkansas, Mississippi, Alabama, and let's just hope this doesn't get too close to Waverly, Tennessee, because we know like the stat flooding, like 17 inches they had in like 24 hours. Like that was insane. That's like smashed a record. So very sorry to all the people who were affected by that and all the lives lost. But yes, Waverly, Tennessee, you guys also have to watch because this will be a big inland threat as well. And it's expected to make another bend to the right if it gets picked up by a frontal system. So we'll be watching Tennessee closely as well because, again, a lot of pre-existing flooding conditions there. Hurricane force probabilities, hurricane force wind probabilities, they're about 20, 30, 40% chance right now, but I can assure you as the storm gets closer, those probabilities definitely will go up for whoever the storm may make landfall on. Sea surface temperature anomalies, all right? Central and Western Gulf, they're really above average. I mean, don't be fooled. Where it is in the Caribbean right now, you might see a lot of gray and think, okay, waters are average, but still, like the waters are still very warm. Like we're talking upper 80s, mid to upper 80s. But as it gets into the Gulf of Mexico, waters will get warmer. Now, like I said, the anomalies are slightly higher to the west as opposed to what they are to the east. Again, that doesn't mean it's going to strengthen any more or less. All right. Now, if we look at the ocean heat content, all right, we just went over one thing, all right, and that was the sea surface temperature anomalies, all right. There's 4 things that really need to line up for this to get its act together. One was the sea surface temperature anomalies, all right. Another thing is not only the ocean surface heat, but the ocean heat below the surface, right, deep down. Now, I will say, even though the Caribbean, maybe in terms of sea surface temperature, it might be a couple degrees cooler than the Gulf, but what they do have and what really matters, all right, is that warm ocean, like the deep ocean heat content is what they have right now. I mean, we're talking about values on the order of 100, upwards of 130 here on the ocean heat content scale, right? And that's measured in joules, I'm pretty sure. And if we look at the Gulf of Mexico, if it comes off of Cuba like this and it goes, we were talking about this with Fred. If Fred was going to go over this, there's this patch. It's pretty much right where the Gulf Stream is in the Gulf of Mexico. It's like right in the middle, smack dab in the middle. And if we were talking about like Fred got pretty close to it, I don't think Fred actually went over it because otherwise Fred would have like exploded in strength. But I mean, Ida could go over this, and if it does, this could result in even more strengthening than what's already anticipated. All right, but it's already sitting in some good oceanic heat content right now, so don't think that it's not in a good environment. Now, one thing that is a little bit on the, I'd say ant side, like the bad side, is the wind shear. And of course, we have the upper level low. All right, that's sitting pretty much. Okay, I should probably stick into using the lighter colors. Upper level low is sticking right here, and that's bringing up the wind shear from this direction. So if you saw the satellite images a lot and you saw how it's moving south to north, like those clouds, that doesn't mean the storm's moving north. The convection is, but the low center, if you looked under those cloud tops closely, you could see it was still moving northwest. All right, so they're kind of getting separated a little bit. So there is still some shear, but it will be weakening. Look at where the low center is and just point south. Do you ever notice how, like, to the south of the storm, it looks peaceful? All right, and any convection that does develop, it stays with the storm because shear around there is low and has been dropping by 10 knots in the past 24 hours. So shear will start to drop. This doesn't really predict future shear. This just tells us the trends in the past 24 hours. But what you can see is that the Gulf of Mexico is pretty empty in shear. All right. Now, again, this one's going to have plenty of time over the Gulf of Mexico. All right. At least over some very warm water for sure. If we look at the National Hurricane Center, all right, they have it over the water from about like midnight, I would say midnight or 2 a.m. on the 28th. So midnight on the 28th till afternoon on the 29th. Okay. That is a full 24, maybe even as much as 36 hours, I'll give it. All right, and under rapid intensification, a storm can strengthen. Rapid intensification, we see a lot, and we probably will see with this storm if conditions line up. That is defined as a storm strengthening 35 miles an hour in wind in the past 24 hours. So let's say 8 o'clock in the morning on Saturday, or I'm just making this up hypothetically, but let's say 8 a.m. on Saturday, it's a 50-mile-an-hour storm. And if 8 a.m. on Sunday, it is a 85-mile-an-hour hurricane, that's classified as rapid intensification. All right. Now, dry air is another one we can, cha-ching, right? Not much in the way of dry air around the storm. Really not much in the Gulf of Mexico. There's some in the Bay of Campeche, but storm's not really going to go that way. All right. And we'll see how much dry air 98L can put up with, as well as 97L up there. All right. Now, if we look at it on the satellite, again, you can see the convection is like just streaming northbound. But I will say the low-level center is definitely, mid-level center is trying to get itself together. You can see the low-level center under there. If you look closely, like I said earlier, it is still moving, all right, in that northwest direction, even though the convection doesn't look like it. But convection really got its act together today. I mean, look at that east side, all right? It's pretty east side loaded, all right? I can't say, I mean, it pretty much is completely east side loaded. We had a little bit on the west side, all right? But that's trying to wrap itself around the storm. So we'll see. Again, this just became a tropical storm, so definitely this will have time to develop for sure. Now I would show the visible imagery, but the sun has definitely gone down and it's getting pretty late, so obviously visible imagery would not be available. But if we look, 40-mile-an-hour sustained winds and pressure according to the tropical tidbits observation from 2 o'clock this afternoon was 1,004. All right, so we'll see maybe if it continues to drop even more from there. Hurricane hunters are flying into the system. All right, if we look here, now on the northeast side, again, that's where a lot of the convection is. They briefly did fly over there. I guess they're sticking to more of the center right now. Actually, they could even, let me actually see if they're finished here. So yeah, they did just finish. Okay, because when I was setting this up a little bit ago, they were actually still flying around. But pressure looks like according to this, they found about 1,006. But definitely there is some pressure lower than that. All right, because if we look on here, right, you can see one definitely did go down to about 1,004, even 1,003. So it definitely was a drop in pressure. All right, and right around, say about 2339Z, which is probably like that's about 739. All right, and notice around that similar time we had a potential spike in surface winds. All right, so, or I mean after that, because obviously when you go through the center, the surface winds are supposed to drop like you see here, and then once you come out of that center, the winds spike. All right, so that's what we're sort of seeing here. But obviously, since I refreshed it, it's moving on. But if you were to look at the surface winds earlier, they did pick up some potentially winds that are greater than 40, 45 miles an hour. Now look at the track guidance. This is the 18Z track guidance. Look how much these models are on point. All right, and if all these model tracks are correct, right, every single one of these is pointing to a major New Orleans landfall. Obviously, this is for track, not strength. But literally, like there's literally, for in terms, now in the beginning, the one track takes it a bit further west, but in terms of landfall, really not one outlier. The closest one to an outlier is this pink one, the CEMI, but still takes it right on like New Orleans. So really not one outlier here. And even when it goes inland, the models are really agreeing on where it's going to go. So this is a good sign from these set of models. Now the GEFS model tracks, we just had the 18Z come out, and you can see now the consensus in terms of strength. Now since the landfall event is not too far out ahead in time, we can go ahead and use the GEFS for strength purposes. Sometimes when you're multiple days out, like 5, 6, 7, 8, sometimes the strength can be inaccurate. But look at this, 979 millibars of pressure, and some models go lower than that, and some do go higher. That's why we have an average of it. But notice how they just all disperse out, and the storm really slows down. This is 3 days out, and this is 2 days after its landfall. Really not moving much. But the general consensus is that it could move eventually to the north and east, maybe towards the mid-Atlantic. And still some yellow lines, pressure could still be below 1,000 millibars by then. All right, if we look at the GEPS model tracks, you can see what I mean, right? Now, this is from 12Z, so this they only do 0 and 12Z outlooks for the GEPS because it's a Canadian-based model run. You can see some do take it to the north and east with some very low pressure, so we'll see what happens to you guys there. But for now, the big concern is for the Gulf Coast, right? I would say now, if it makes landfall with the size that it's forecast to be and the wind that it's forecast to be and the storm movement, I would say like wherever like east of the center, let's say that'd be New Orleans or Biloxi, I would say a good 10 plus feet of surge, all right, could be on our hands right now. I would even go as far as 12 feet, all right, based on the storm size, because Category 1 hurricane is usually about 3 to 5 feet of surge, although we pretty much saw similar amounts with Henri, and it was a tropical storm. 6 to 8 feet of surge can be with like a Cat 2, and then like 8 to 12 feet, I think, is like a Cat 3. But of course, that's really not accurate anymore because storm surge really varies, not only just with the wind strength of the storm, but the size of it and how long it's going to last. Now, 18Z model runs for the intensity guidance, a lot more have it becoming a Cat 2, all right? And a few even do have it, a couple models even have it becoming a Cat 3. I think that'll change. I think more models will fall into that line. European model, I'm going to read through the models here. And you can see, all right, coming from the north, but look at this. So all these wind isobars is the wind direction, right? You can see an onshore flow, I mean, as early as Saturday morning. Now, this doesn't tell us the wind strength, but look at this. Even like this morning, right? I'm sorry, tomorrow morning, pretty strong winds, or I'm sorry, onshore winds. But still, nonetheless, all right, there will be a little onshore push. We're going to have some, those daily thunderstorms that we saw, those daytime afternoon storms in New Orleans today, that will only make the ground more saturated, and that's not good news, of course. Now, you can see the high pressure sort of, if you look closely, you can see the high to the north that's sort of limited like right here, and that's helping to steer the storm sort of this way. All right, now, Again, here's a storm, right? You can see those isobars, but those black isobars, you can see around the east side of the system. See how they're like shaded in a darker black? That's where the really strong winds are. All right, that's where like it really tells you where the winds are. But nonetheless, still some pretty strong winds coming into coastal Louisiana. All right, by Sunday morning. So definitely be ready for that. And then look at this, comes in through central Louisiana. That puts, those black isobars, right? Those very strong easterly winds right on top of New Orleans, basically. So that would be a direct New Orleans hit. And I was looking at the rain gauges. If any of you guys were watching the Weather Channel earlier, they were talking about the rain gauges, or excuse me, the rain pumps in like New Orleans. They sit below sea level. That's a one hazard. But the pumps there can drain an inch of rain in the first hour, and then after that, only they can drain a ½ inch per hour. All right, and they can only drain a 5 inches of rainfall max, no matter how long of a time period it falls under. So let's say we only get 2 inches of rain in New Orleans, but if that 2 inches falls in 1 hour, then the pumps will not be able to handle it. But you can see around the system here, it's kind of in this general direction or this general area, according to the Euro, where the strongest winds would be. All right, and then guess what? 24 hours later, guess what? We still got the onshore flow coming in for New Orleans, for Biloxi, Mobile, the Panhandle, and yes, even you guys east of the Big Bend, you will be having some onshore flow. And guess what? From the high pressure to the east, you guys in the southeast will have an onshore flow. So it's pretty much a ripple effect for everybody. But guess what? The onshore flow Wednesday morning is not done yet. Now around Tennessee, right near Waverly and Nashville, is where those black lines is where the stronger winds are. All right, and again, the onshore flow does not stop. Again, it's all about the angle that the storm comes in. All right, and then we lose those black isobars, which means the winds do weaken a little bit, but still a pretty intense system over North Carolina and Virginia. But I don't want to get too far ahead of myself yet. Look at the GFS, the Canadian, and some intensity models as well as we come to the latter half of the video here. So as you can see, all right, now GFS making it about an 88 knot storm, which is probably a good category 2, because category 3 requires 100 knots. So 88 knots. But look at this, 958 millibars of pressure. All right, and that is right on top of New Orleans. I mean, this is a very serious storm here. And even for inland areas, you guys will get the wind inland as well. All right. Now I know the models definitely they try to keep the winds at the coast, but the pressure, you can see any pressure below 1,000 millibars, I say is still a decently strong system. All right, so you're still gonna have some winds here around the low pressure system. All right, so definitely, the blues could still be tropical storm force winds, because look at how low the pressure still is. All right, so let's look at the Canadian model. All right, so if we looked at the timing, GFS model had sort of a landfall as the latest run at about Sunday morning. Now the European model had a landfall around, early, like 5 a.m. ish on Monday. Now the Canadian actually is one of the only, I think maybe even the only model that does not forecast a hurricane, which is surprising. I think the 0Z, they really weren't showing much of a hurricane either. So Canadians actually have been the weakest of the bunch. So I guess we can hope that they're right. But still 62 knots. That's still like a 70-mile-an-hour tropical storm. But I definitely think it will get stronger than this. Like I would say, from what I'm seeing right now, at the very least, a Category 1 hurricane, for sure. And with the expanding size, like we saw with Henri, right? Expanding size can make a Cat 1 seem like a Cat 3, right? Like when Sandy came ashore, I think it was like several hundreds of miles wide, maybe even close to 1,000 even. But I think it was like a few hundred miles wide at least. And people were like, wait, what? It was like Cat 1? And I thought it was I've heard people say I thought it was a Cat 4. Like, no. All right, it was just a really big system. All right, so that's expanding size will be an issue as well. All right, let's take a look at the HWRF now. Now the HWRF and HMOD are two pretty good intensity models. I'm not quite sure about the track. I really have heard mixed things about the track, but Euro is good in terms of accuracy overall. But again, don't invest your life in the one model. All right, definitely want to take a look at the other ones as well. If we track this to the north and west, now they have a landfall a little bit further to the west. All right, now that still does put, now even though the black MSLP lines are core of stronger winds, in order, now I think these black isobars that you see here, those black lines, I think those are where we are seeing winds of 60 miles an hour plus. I guess that's like your 60 mile an hour plus zone here. All right, but still, even though the core of the stronger winds is over here, New Orleans, you're still going to be in a surge threat, no less. All right, because again, it's going to be an expanding system, and the HWF is calling for a Category 3. All right, if we zoom in closer to landfall here, look at this, 101 knots, and the worst area around that northeast side right there is where the observation would be. All right, and notice how in the center of the system there's like a bunch of light blue and even some white. Okay, that's a very good eye wall because that means winds are very, very calm, like less than 8 miles an hour. All right, so that's a pretty good eye wall. All right, let's look at the HMOD now. All right, it's our last model here. Again, taking it to the north and west. Now they actually have it becoming a hurricane as it approaches Cuba, so we'll see if that can happen. I don't think so because water near Cuba is a bit shallow and we still have some shear. But that does not mean that when the storm comes on the other side of Cuba that we will not see a monster, because we could still see a monster storm. So this is definitely something to keep an eye on closely. Definitely be giving updates on this one. And also a Category 2 storm, according to the HMOD, around 80 knots or so. So that's pretty much on the border between a Cat 1 and Cat 2. All right, so definitely want to keep an eye on this very closely. Still 968 millibars of pressure, very low pressure. And look, inland through Louisiana, 996, 999 millibars of pressure as the low. Center gets near Tennessee, where we, again, wasn't had a flood threat. Last map here, the Weather Prediction Center. Okay, you can already see the tracks inland here, all right, of where we can see over 3 inches in this zone. But look at this. Look at this brown region for the coast of Louisiana and even a little bit of coast of Texas here. Biloxi, Mobile, all right, in that zone, 7 to 10 inches. And guess what? For New Orleans in southeast Louisiana and even actually Biloxi would be in that zone, that's 10 to 15 inches. And right just southwest of New Orleans, that's over like 15 to 20 inches. So very heavy rainfall is possible. This could be a big water issue like most hurricanes we've seen recently in the past years. So water will be the issue with this one. So thank you guys for watching. Definitely stay tuned for updates. I know it was a bit of a longer video today, but definitely was a lot to uncover from this system. I am the Weather Dude signing off. Till next time, I will catch you guys in the next video.